This is the Infinite Podcast with me, Øystein Rabbe, and Ulf Tønder Flitti. We are two Norwegian guys exploring the infinite, the spiritual realm, the deep wonders of life, and we're here to share it with you. And in this episode, I'm traveling on a road trip in California. It's actually a spirit quest. I'm writing this book, Finding Malibu, a book about exploring the deeper journey of who you are. To see more about the book, visit findingmalibu.com. In this episode, I'm talking to Cheyenne Regan, a filmmaker in LA that I met on this journey. And she has a really interesting story to tell. We're talking about the power of a story and storytelling and how she found filmmaking as her path. You know, storytelling is what really shapes us. It is easy to underestimate the power of storytelling and how much it actually affects our inspiration, our path in life, based on what influences you have around you. She decided to be a role model and to take life in her own hands and create her hero story. Without further ado, this is Infinite Podcast with our guest tonight, Cheyenne Regan. Enjoy. Welcome to this podcast, Cheyenne.
Hi.
Hi. It's so good. It's so good to meet you today.
Yes, I actually am excited to know you.
Yeah. And we are now in, what's this part of?
It's called Whittier.
Whittier.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually a Quaker town.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like founded in the 1800s, but it was based on the Quaker sector of Presbyterian type of Christianity.
Uh-huh.
But the main guy who founded the place was a poet.
Okay, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because arts is an important aspect of this city. Mm-hmm. And Richard Nixon actually was president. He went to Whittier High School. Oh. Back to the Future was filmed in Whittier. Yeah. There's a few little fun nuggets that influence the world.
Wow. Yeah, and you just invited me into your home.
Yeah.
We have spent some hours just talking and connecting about interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so can you tell the listeners something about yourself?
Yeah, I am a trained screenwriter, producer, director. I love all things sci-fi, fantasy, adventure. But what's the most exciting aspect is our life.
Yeah.
You know, living it. What does it mean to be human right now? That's what excites me the most.
So what does it mean to be human right now?
You know, it's evolving. And that's actually what my film's about, is human evolution when you look at it as a whole. Because we are at a critical stage, I think, and, you know, just being present, Earth, you know, where we're adding climate change. Like, what is it to be human? I mean, before we were guardians of this planet, and that meant we were one with animals. We were farming the land, and now we have machines that do that for us, you know? So we're losing our connection to having a purpose on a physical aspect of Earth. So it leads you into the mental aspect of what is it to be human now, you know? So it's a really big question, actually.
I like it's easier to be negative about all the mental issues and all kind of questions that comes up as if it was better before, you know.
Right.
But actually, we are in a time now where all that baggage and all that stuff has to come up because we have space to do it. It's not just about physical survival anymore.
Right. And that's where we're at. And I think that's why we are having so many issues around the world, because we haven't honestly asked ourselves that question. You know, where do we go from here? I mean, we see war so much. We see terrorism, we see fear, but yet there's so much opportunity to really take a good look at ourselves and say, what have we accomplished? Like, what have we learned? I mean, we now have a way to communicate with every single human on this planet thanks to the internet.
Yeah, that's quite amazing.
There's things that were created in myths long ago, the Tower of Babel, which we all spoke one language. I mean, that's communication. Yeah. And yet we're living in it right now, and we're afraid of what's going to happen. So I just think that it's such an interesting time to be an observer as a storyteller. Yeah. And to allow the downloading of information to see, how do I visually communicate that to give us hope to where we're going.
Yeah. So what do you mean when you talk about downloading of information?
I mean that if everyone hasn't heard already, there's an idea, the collective consciousness, the ether, there's many names for it. But there is this stream of information that gets put like seeds into multiple people's minds. And we kind of have an idea of what needs to be said, what needs to be visually shown. And it kind of gives us direction, like an internal GPS. But it's listening. It's being prepared and ready when that download comes. Yeah. What do you do with it? You know? And so I think that's the many layers for many people that are being called to live their purpose is for this moment. Yeah. You know, whatever form it takes, when you have that seed planted, you need to fulfill it. You know, you need to manifest it. And so I circle back to the question, what is it to be human? Because many people, you know, they're looking for direction, a different way than how our ancestors or even our own parents is, you know, one generation away. We know there's something in us that's saying there's a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that time has come. But it's funny how we often coming into that insecurity or the uncertainty of realizing, okay, something needs to shift or seem to change, but how we still so often still look backwards to see what did work before, right? Hoping that will work again, right? Even though we want a new way to do things, or
yeah, and I don't think anything's wrong with reflection or you know, looking back at the past. I think history is a great tool to learn from our mistakes. I think it's important to still know how to do things, like simple things like grow your own food. But it's more the idea of time, you know, like at least in the last two generations, you know, like my daughter, she's 13. She has never, you know, seen a farmer before, you know, like when I was a kid in the 80s, you would still see farms in urban, you know, LA, like you'd see strawberry fields, you see orange groves. That's all gone, you know, so we're not even witnessing anymore how our food is made, you know, how the creation from earth fuels our body, what is called food. Like we have this huge missing gap of information visually that kids aren't getting anymore. Yeah. So to look back and to see, like, what are we missing? You know, we have milk cartons and kids just know this is a liquid you drink, but they don't even see the process of it coming out of a dairy farm, you know, like there's a lot of missing information. So if these kids are evolving into that direction, well, does that mean in the future food's not going to be necessary? It's an interesting question.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's showing them like, well, we don't need to know how it works or where it comes from. So is this a point of evolution, this moment that I'm recognizing my daughter's generation may in the future in 50 years might not need food?
Yeah.
Science.
I like that thinking.
Yeah, science
Yeah.
may evolve and maybe they come up with some sort of pill that gives us all our nutrients and that's all you need, sunlight and water
Yeah.
and a pill.
And a pill.
I mean, that would
The magic
definitely
pill.
save a lot of carbon footprint, right? If you had to eliminate all the farming communities.
Yeah.
So that's the question. What is it to be human and where are we going? I mean, I'm also obsessed with science and space, you know?
Yeah.
Right now, space races are a different type from the 70s. So we're talking about individual space travel. That's exciting. Like, that stimulates me wanting to know, wow, in my lifetime, am I going to be able to touch the moon? That's exciting.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility. There's, I think people right now, and I think Virgin, they had, I think the first trip recently where it was a manned mission, but I think they just left the atmosphere, but
Okay.
it still was just personal travel. Like, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Like we're living in the future. We're the Jetsons.
But is it like when you get out of the atmosphere, then you can? Because I just when you mentioned it, I was thinking that okay, we down here on Earth, we try to reduce, every kind of carbon
True.
and all that. But when you get outside, maybe then it's okay. Or how does that kind of?
Oh, I guess unless you're going to live on a ship the whole time, then I guess it doesn't matter. All those gases and lots of things we don't obviously know as normal knowledge.
Yeah.
But maybe in the next couple of generations, that will be normal knowledge. Like, okay, if you're going to leave the upper atmosphere, like, be prepared. You can't leave.
Yeah.
Like, this will be like you're getting on a plane, like, these are the rules. This is what you can eat or not eat, Don't open a window in a plane, right? I mean, it's interesting. Like, I know a lot of people look negative about the future and climate change, but I just see it as another chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can always choose to have a healthy approach or like a positive approach or not. It depends on how you look at it and what you look for.
I'm sure people in, every decade, I'm sure they thought the world was going to end,
Yeah, and then it's just a new chapter.
It's just a new chapter or a shift of power or new technology comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, just 100 years ago, we had a car, and now it's so normal. But the first people were probably like, what are you going to do with that thing?
That is true.
It moves by itself without horses.
Yeah.
So who knows what's coming in the next 100?
Probably a lot.
Yeah. Science is very exciting. And that's why I love being able to just every day, try and conceptualize worlds that can communicate to other people where we're going. I mean, I actually watched this really cool master class of Aaron Sorkin. He's a screenwriter. He has great stuff. One of his is The Social Network, which is the Facebook story.
Yeah.
But he said that Steven Spielberg actually reached out to him and said, hey, I want you to write something about Mars. We need a story that's saying of how people are going to live, even in the direction, like even just the journey to get to Mars. Like, we need someone. And that's because Spielberg was reached out to someone from NASA saying, hey, we'll find the money, but we need someone to tell this story. So it's interesting that in order to create a reality, the storytellers need to find a way to communicate it to the masses.
That makes sense.
That's manifestation.
Yeah.
So we're going back to, the ancient ways of creation. I mean, that's what always comes back down to is the story.
How did you find or realize that you wanted to tell stories and make film?
I would take it back to my first year in college. I was set to be a lawyer. I was pre-law major. And I took one acting class as, just the extra classes you can take to get an easy A. And I remember the professor saying, okay, go get a playbook that represents you and that you'll be able to have a monologue, which is acting out just a single, couple verses. And I went through the playbook section and I was looking for something that fit my character, which is I'm Mexican American, I'm a woman, and I'm looking for a hero story. And there was no stories for this character. And I thought, well, that's upsetting. So I reached out to the professor and I said, hey, you have Romeo and Juliet, you have all these great Brighton Beach memoirs. I love this story. I love this play. But is there any Mexican American women leads, like in plays or stories? And he said, no, I'm sorry, I don't own any of those. He's like, we can probably check back with the library, see if there's any, but right now it's all experimental. But I'd encourage you to go find one. And that, just driving home, thinking about, wow, I've created my identity up to this point, wanting to create justice for people like me.
Yeah.
But what does it even matter if we don't even have...
You first wanted to be a lawyer, right?
I wanted to be a lawyer, yeah. So if I couldn't even find a story that is going to be in my subconscious to tell me that I can be a hero, how are we ever supposed to be, how are we supposed to really create justice in the world? Like if we've only seen ourselves as these characters that other people that have made their hero stories have placed us in. And that that was a huge reflection point for me. And I knew in my heart, I said, I need to write. I need to create my hero story for others that look like me, that, come from, our ancestors and where we walk. And how do we find that hero story? We have to create it. So that's what shifted my entire life. And trust me, a lot of people were not happy about it. I had volunteered a lot of hours already with judges and courts and studied a lot. And I just knew I had to do this. So started off as a writer for theater because I didn't have any people that I knew in film at all. Film was not even an idea. And then because of my writing in theater, then I started directing for theater. And then my director at the time said, I really think you write more visually, and I think you should try writing for film. So then I went to law school. Film school. That's the old Cheyenne. Film school at Cal State Long Beach because I knew that's where Spielberg went. And Spielberg was the hero. So they say follow your mentor, and he's my virtual mentor. So that's how it all began. And ever since then, all my scripts, I have 5 feature scripts. I have multiple TV show ideas. I have 3 animation pilots, and they all have Latino leads and coming from my world. Yeah. So universal storytelling, but with people that look like me. Yeah, so I'm excited for that next journey of mine to go into feature films. But so far with my short films, web series, music video, I've done some fun things independently. But now I'm ready to step into the big world.
That's great. And I love what you say about storytelling and how the power it has on creating the possibility of,
Absolutely. Yeah. So why stop with, just an individual story when you can, show the world a new life, you know? This could be the new world that we've all been looking for. Well, someone has to write it, Someone has to create it.
That's true. So true. And where can people find something that you have on that? Like you have a series that is online?
Right now, my website has the films that are available to show, or the shorts that I've done. So that's ccreagan.com. Yeah. My initials, CC, Cheyenne, Charisse. ccreagan.com. some of it is not available because I have contracts with SAG actors, which of course is amazing to work with professionals.
Yeah.
But there's rules. So, but for the most part, you can get a good sense of where I'm going. And so that's where I'm looking forward to my big budget sci-fi new adventure films that will definitely make you question. And I also actually want to create a new genre called quantum realism.
Quantum realism.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
It's more or less using quantum theories and exploring it on film in storytelling. Like, how do we experience antimatter? How do we experience imaginary time? How do, I would love to be able to have those as like a background theme, and then use it as a way to create, the things that are in theory right now. So that's what I want to create a new genre.
Love it. It's perfect.
So, I mean, but that's what I'm obsessed with. I'm constantly, every day, it's like I have books on Einstein that I'm just reading about his life, the way he looked at the world, to reading about Tesla, to reading about the science that's out right now, science magazine journals. I mean, it's what fuels me. So if I can embed that into my films as just part of the setting, and it's subconsciously weaving into your brain, like, yay, I succeeded.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and like we talked about in the car just now, how like I see for myself as well, coming from television and film, and
which is crazy. I didn't know that about you. So.
Yeah, that's true. And how I've seen until I realized what I actually was interested in like the curiosity for life, exploring all the spirituality, the meaning of life, all the deeper aspects, trying to look for who is actually me, and all of that. But before that, I was just obsessed with the medium that film was, and the industry, and all this kind of trying to reach the top of that mountain without having. I also remember like I wanted to do more. There was different phases. Like when I fell in love with film, I was still a teenager, and I made a lot of films just for fun,
Right.
And it was so great.
I see that phase like looking at a machine, right?
Yeah.
And you see this like beautiful car. It's like a beautiful machine, but you can't, unless you drive it, right? You don't really understand the machine.
That's true. It's true. But it's like that phase, I just fell in love with the whole thing. And I realized also, because I also got a lot of encouragement around it, because the things I made was kind of at least not that bad,
I would love to see your stuff.
Yeah.
And it's also cool because it's I know it's our past, but you could still see like, I'm sure I can navigate and see where you're going.
Yeah, that's just probably true.
Yeah.
And I realized also how courageous I was back then, in sense of just like some of the movies I made was kind of, I got funding from Norway.
Oh, wow.
To travel to Serbia to make a film that
Amazing.
And then the screenplay was written by an American that I got to know on the internet.
Wow.
And there was a Danish guy writing the music for it.
Oh.
And there was a Norwegian guy writing the kind of end credits with lyrics and everything. And I was like, all of that was done with zero budget, other than I got money for the ticket to go to Serbia.
Okay.
And other films I got connected on the internet, have different people helping out, all for fun and for free,
Yeah.
And then I went into the industry, and everything got so serious,
Yes.
And I had so much to prove, so much to live up to, all these kind of things. And when I look back at it, I realized how the creativity just died, gradually.
Yes.
And it became a business and a job and a chase for something. And then coming out of that, I realize now when I'm no longer kind of attached to create a career in film, because it's just a tool,
Yes. It's just a machine.
yeah, but
One
now
machine you can use.
Yeah, exactly. So now I see how I can use that tool to tell something or to show something, or then I suddenly have something to tell, not just something to prove, you know. So that
well, and I think that's what's the most amazing part of social media, that we live in this social media world, you know. We're talking about like short content of seconds now. I mean, it takes us really back to the, you know, the oil Renaissance paintings where it's just one frame, but it tells you so much and it's so powerful. And I think we're going through this like wave right now of like trying to deliver content and how, you know, how much do we really need to tell a story, you know? And I think that's where having or learning the machine of film in this media industry is an amazing like tool that, you know, you have access to, because now you can use it on so many different platforms. I mean, that's transmedia now, like you're talking about. Like, you're going to go from book, ebook to podcast. I mean, this is transmedia. You're doing it.
I remember when I started in television, it was right before, it was in 2006, and people started talking inside industry about, you know, linear television is on its way out.
Yeah.
So maybe our jobs are over. You know, like no people said that, but that was a fear that was hanging in the air, you know. Yeah. And just see where it went after this, like with social media and everything.
And I really do think it's still a Wild West. I really think because of the internet, YouTube actually specifically, it changed the game. And I think a lot of people are still trying to figure that out. I mean, I'm working with executives and, you know, everyone's now Netflix or Amazon, you know, like people aren't even looking at theatrical distribution anymore, you know. It's all about how many followers does your star have, you know, like I've heard casting that's just based on their social media, you know, levels. And that to me just rips out the craft, the art itself.
Yeah, it does. That's true.
Like, wait, is this just all now walking products, you know? So that's where I'm holding on to the past in the sense of wanting to create art in this digital age, but that's where we have to evolve. We have to find the art.
Yeah, makes sense.
And we have to find the stories.
There are this, you know, there's more and more information coming. There's more and more stuff around the stuff, so to speak. So also that the whole thing about rating something, for instance, like, okay, am I willing to watch this story, or do I need to check first if it's validated by someone else saying it was a good story?
Good enough.
That's also interesting phenomena. You know?
It is.
But that might be even before the internet, for all I know. Yeah. So with books and things, probably maybe the same. I don't know how it worked back then, but at least it was different in the sense that it wasn't instant. You couldn't instantly get it approved or not.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. But there's probably good things with that as well. I mean, we get the experiences we need, I guess. So the more we need overload of information to realize that's not all there is, might be just a good thing to get that experience.
Yeah, I mean, at least circling around the idea of the likes, the, you know, reviews, the stars. I mean, sometimes it's helpful, you know, sometimes it saves you time to, you know, you're like, okay, the masses are saying this is a 1-star film. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's all bad or not. Like there is
no, but I mean, there's a lot of the whole like system that I'm excited to throw that out the window. Like there doesn't have to be a certain amount of hearts, you know, you're liking on Instagram in order for me to feel like, oh, this was a good shirt I'm wearing. Like I think it has to get to a point, and that's where I definitely feel for younger people that were born into nothing but social media, that have been, you know, have a phone in their hand since day one. I feel for them, because I don't think we should be that I guess, aware of people judging us at all times. I think there's a major imbalance there. And I think it is going to create people to be more insecure and create more mental issues with how they are viewed in the world. So I think there is something that needs to happen with social media. There needs to be some sort of mental health. I don't know. Is there like a mental health union that can like review and say, guess what? You need to limit this to 1 hour a week. Something. There needs to be some sort of data or science, that is evaluating how our mental health is being connected to media. Because all I know is that, and trust me, so many of my even immediate circle friends are, I've already watched everything on Netflix. I've already binge watched everything.
Yeah.
And if you're just constantly being fed information of stories that are actually meaningless to you, it's just to be on top and have conversations with your friends. Like, I don't know how that's helping society.
No.
I think we're being distracted too much to then recognize what are the problems you're facing with.
Yes, man. It's like numbing yourself down.
Yeah, there's some sort of mechanism that's being created right now to make us become very lethargic to the world. And coincidentally, today I found out that there was a Holocaust remembrance that happened last week, and went right over my head. I didn't get any like news feed clicks about it, but I saw another person post it, and so it made me think of Schindler's List and the little girl in the red coat.
Yeah.
And that I just remember the first time I ever saw that image, it just affected me so much. It's like it gave character to an issue that everyone else was invisible to. The rest of the world knew that Hitler was killing millions of Jews, but no one did anything about it till it was like, very well into it.
Yeah.
And that symbolism of the little girl in the red coat just gave it meaning. It made it aware. And that's what I posted today. It was just literally visibility, awareness, and then immortality, because at some point that remembrance gave that little girl, like she became immortal in the land of our memories forever.
Sure.
Like as soon as I said that, you lit up. You knew exactly who I was talking about.
Yeah.
And it's one moment in a movie, and yet it lives with all of us forever, So that's where I do take a lot of responsibility as a storyteller to be very careful with what I put in my films and what I think people can, really process, or what is too much. Like what do we already have too much of that you're binge watching, and it's feeding into the wrong parts of your brain. I do take a lot of time to be aware of that, because I think that's really important.
So what do you think? What is it? How you see it? People need the most right now. If you look at the collective, like a whole evolution of us.
I think empathy.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the number one emotion that there is a lack of. To be able to see or feel what it's to be in someone else's world, and feel that everyday aspect versus just seeing a character and these are all the different characteristics of them, so then I'm going to judge them because we're all fueled on judgment right now with social media, and this is why they turned out this way because of all this XYZ. Versus being in their shoes, knowing their chemical makeup. Everyone's different. I could look perfectly well together, but there may be some chemical imbalance of me that, makes gray skies not a good day for me. And yet there's just so much information that science has not figured out yet. But as humans, we used to say they were evil, or that, oh, that person's crazy, or that person's possessed because they're acting different. That sugar may be an allergic reaction for certain people. And we don't know that because, that person's not tested. So I feel like empathy is so important because it can give you that mental capacity to think, I can't judge this person right now because I've never lived in their shoes. And that to me is like the most important emotion I feel that humans need to watch, They need a process, and they need to live.
Yeah.
Because that is what was given to us from all the ancient stories of the heroes in the past. Whether it's Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, we're talking about empathy and understanding what it is to be in a different role and that change. So that's what I think humans need right now the most. That
was a beautiful answer.
It was downloaded.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think I'm channeling right now, and that's even to say that openly, like Cheyenne 5 years ago would have been afraid for me to even use the word channeling, because that word was connected to things of unknown, misunderstanding, and fear. But I recognize that when there is a stream of thought that is coming just so fluently and effortless, there is a higher power that is present and is fueling the love, to be able to communicate and share and commune with you. Because that's real to me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just not afraid to say it anymore.
And that's good. That's comes to mind also with this podcast as well. Like I mentioned, me and my friend Ulf has done over 100 Norwegian episodes.
Wow.
And it used to be a scary thing to, because my background is, coming from a shy place, not believing anything I would say would make sense to anyone else or be important enough to listen to, or all these stories, But also having the experience really from way back, that's when I just tap into the truth or tap into that presence, that then things are coming true totally effortlessly, and I can even be amazed myself, wow, this was really good, So it just reminded me of that as well, that when you show up, things are the truth is gonna be there.
It's going to be even better than you expected.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that is part of what it is to be human. I think that question is trusting the path, trusting the journey, because too many people are seeking perfection, and we are human, and that's why we exist, because we are imperfect. And I get absolutely in awe of plant life. I was sharing with you nature, just because it's programmed. The flowers know when it's summer, when it's winter. They are reborn. It's a beautiful cycle to watch and observe, and that's perfection. When you can consistently and observe the same thing over and over, and humans don't have that. And I think there's something special about imperfection. And that's why we should, indulge in recognizing when these imperfect moments happen. That's real living, this is when real life is happening, and it wasn't how you planned it, but that's when you can have those moments wow, if I don't put expectation on this, then this is even better than I ever imagined.
Then you're kind of part of the whole mechanism, so it can really blossom instead of you trying to limit it to something you can control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's, I remember when I started realizing that, how shocked I was in a way, that because I've been trying my whole life to control everything, and then starting to get small experiences of, okay, every time I let go of that, life can take care of itself, or life is taking care of me in a better way than I could myself.
Absolutely. We're living in it. We're living in this biodome, an organism, and that's where I feel between human to human, or maybe the person listening to this, when it's out, you're connecting with us right now. You're a part of this time and space, and we're all part of this large web of life. We're all interconnected, and that's constantly proven to me.
Yeah. And it's I had this metaphor today in another conversation. It's you're so worried if you're putting together a puzzle,
Yeah.
and you are one of the puzzle pieces. you're so worried that you're going to fit into the right puzzle, your right position, that you try to figure out how you can be the right puzzle piece to fit in.
Right.
But that's the only way we can fit in, because you're trying to, be something.
Right.
And then when you let go of the whole thing, then you fit in perfectly because you're part of the picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that I think that's another big deal for everyone, is to learn the words "let go."
Yeah.
And it's just constantly been, letting go is probably the scariest part of shifting.
Yeah.
It's just letting go of all expectations. But once you've done it a couple of times, it's almost like the beginning of being on top of a water slide, It gets exciting.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm letting go. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then there's this glee that comes over you, and other people don't understand it. They're looking at you like, you just lost your job, or you just lost an investor, or how can you be so excited? You had millions yesterday, you have none today, But it's like, you get to this point of recognizing that we're in this this biodome, this matrix, and anything can happen. Or, like, I just watched this really cool YouTube of Will Smith, and he was up for the role for Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
And he was sharing how, when it was pitched to him, he didn't understand it. He couldn't connect to it. He's like, let's all think about this idea. What if I would have got the role? He's like, I might have screwed up the Matrix. Like, I thought that was such a humble and yet an epiphany. Like, you're right. Like, you think you're being set up for this most amazing journey, but maybe that wasn't your journey to start, and someone that's meant for that is going to be able to really show us what that's about,
Yeah.
And that's where
Makes
I
so
love
much
that.
sense. Yeah.
It really puts things in perspective. And then I release expectation, and I say, whatever or however the universe is going to put me to work in whatever criteria or way I'm going to be used, it's going to be for my highest good.
Yeah.
And that just lets me let go of everything.
And then you can actually come to a place where you are enjoying your place,
Yes.
Instead of trying to play some role that isn't yours to play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, and that's where I, when I saw that Will Smith YouTube, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I loved it when he's like, I could have screwed up the Matrix. It's like, wow, amazing.
Something that came to my mind when we talked about empathy, it's like, because it's something I've been struggling with in my journey lately, realizing the other kind of the dark side of it, not necessarily the dark side, but the shadow side of it, of caring too much or not understanding how you take on other people's stuff, I keep confusing empathy and this other word people use.
Compassion?
No. Yeah, never mind. Probably a Norwegian word.
It'll come later.
Yeah. It's just like I've realized this, that a breakthrough that I just went through last week actually has been this realization of coming to a new kind of plateau in my life where I feel so much more freer than I was before. And I came from this social phobia background, being okay to be in every kind of conversation, feeling okay with not having anything to say, like going through all these barriers of feeling more free.
Yeah.
But still experiencing coming to a point where I very often kind of got paralyzed in not having anything to say,
right,
and making a story about it that it just was that I wasn't interested in those people, because I talked about ordinary stuff or things that I thought was boring or whatever, daily life stuff and all this stuff. And then that has been okay, but it's also been to an extent frustrating over the last couple of years or something.
Yeah.
And realizing this shift that happened now is that I actually came to a new level. Then I saw this clearly, that what have actually been happening is that since I still had some insecurity on some level, when I came to that place where I didn't know what to say or didn't know how to take the lead or how to
transition.
Yeah. what I rather did in that vacuum was to take on the other people's fears and emotions, you know. So I just think it's interesting that I see now how the empathy can become something that kind of drowns you as well if you don't know how to
let go.
To let go.
Or have boundaries. That to me is very important as well. Boundaries are very big for me, especially when it comes to creating, because collaboration is a beautiful thing, but yet there is sometimes too much overlap, you know, where if you don't set boundaries, then, you know, people want more and more and more and more.
Yeah, I know that experience.
And that's where I think the empathy emotion can be taken advantage of, you know. So that's where I think when it comes to empathy needs, like I said, needs to be lived, it needs to be explored, but you need to set boundaries so that you're not taken for granted, you know. But that comes with everything else. I think everyone needs to explore their boundaries more often, because, you know, we're in a taker's world, you know. It's very rare, and I think more introverted people, you know, have more empathy than others, but we're being programmed to be forced to be extroverts, like on social media, and take, you know. True. No one's giving anymore. No one's coming from that place of compassion that they just do things because they literally want to hear you. They, you know, it's always, what is it in for me? Like, what am I going to get out of it? What reward do I get at the end of it? You know, is there a cash prize? You know, and that's where it's hard. And that's why you have to set those boundaries to make sure that people know exactly where you're coming from, exactly what's expected, and what you can give. Sometimes you can't give. There's certain days where you're drained, and that's when you need to listen to your body and rest, you know?
That's so true.
And that's where, as much as a creative that I am, I feel like creatives are naturally collaborative. We love to be around other people, you know, and even if you're not extroverted, you want to listen to other people. And that's where you can be taken advantage as a giver, you know, because we give a lot to the world. And that's something I had to learn very early on, and yet I'm human, so I have definitely been taken advantage a few times, too many, but I've learned, and now it's very clear. And that's why I love being at this place I'm in right now, because it's so clear. I see my path. I know exactly the steps I need to take, and just wait for that alignment, you know, the alignment of the right people that are, and I really do feel when it comes to storytelling that you need that alignment, you know, the right people come into place, everyone that's supposed to be part of that working machine, you know, comes in, and then you make a baby together. It's like, this is the creation, you know, and this is going to live even beyond us. And that's what brings me joy, is seeing how to, you know, pull out the best of people and, you know, work as a unit and really paint this vision that the world needs. Like, that's exciting.
That is exciting. Wow.
But I liked your idea too about I think something else people need to also come into terms with themselves is not saying anything. Sometimes there is time where it's okay. Like,
that's been a huge realization, you know, that because I grew up in that idea, and I like the whole extrovert thing, you know, like the more I can say, the more popular or accepted I would be, you know, the more smart or the more social, the more all these ideas about how I should be. And just coming through that place where I realize it doesn't really matter. Like, people still seems to like me, even though I say nothing sometimes. And that's okay. And even just, and from that, I also experience people saying that, thank you for just being here, you know, like, so there's many realizations I've had after being okay with that. So yeah. And also when it's like, I'm probably a person like that, and has probably always been like that, that I, unless I have something to say, I don't say anything. The only difference now is that I I don't have stories in that sense that it's wrong to be like that, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there's a great book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Have you heard of it?
I'm actually reading it right now.
Ah! And one of the agreements is be impeccable with your word.
That's
And
the first one, I think, or second?
I think it is the first one. And I think that is very important.
Yeah.
And, only speak from a place of truth. And how simple is that?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing from the world as well is, because of social media, everyone feels like they need to post something every day or they need to say something every day. And you need to let everyone know that you're here, you're visible.
Yeah.
But really, it's about doing, it's about living your truth. And some days, like I said, you need a rest. Some days you don't need to say anything. You need to find silence, like seeking in your contentment to find peace within yourself is so important, And just like, there's a whole season for the nature world of like winter to be dormant. Like, how many days do we give ourselves as humans? They say, we work 5 days a week. So we get 2 days of rest, like, and that really doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, we're just constantly going and going. And so it doesn't surprise me why we have so much turmoil or why there's, at least in America, we're having like shootings every day, and there's social unrest because we don't know how to find peace anymore.
Yeah.
And how are we going to learn that? If most of these people, at least from speaking from my culture, like it's not taught to us how to be still, how to be in silence, how to find peace. Like, they say, go to this building, church, where there's tons of people and everyone's noisy and we make more noise. And we pray for peace. We pray for silence. But you only get 2 minutes or less for that prayer. However, the preacher, as long as he's praying, that's your silence. And it's still not silent because you have someone telling you what you should be grateful for.
Yeah. So true.
So why America, things need to change. And it's not just America. I'm sure there's other countries facing their own battles. But I mean, I just see this as the good thing about social media, the good thing about internets, blogs, podcasts, films is to show a different way. Well, it's like, let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's demonstrate.
Yeah. Let's share our story. Like, that's why I think it's so important to tell stories, to share your own story and just be real, like, today, I woke up and I didn't feel like, being a part of this today. We heard a friend earlier say he can't wait till death, he can't wait. Like that's important to hear. Like we all know he doesn't want to die, but just to have that visual acknowledgement of him leaving, like with joy, because everyone's so afraid to die.
Yeah.
Like that is a beautiful memory I have now of like, he's at peace with his life. He has no regrets. And that's what we need to see more. We need to focus more on the afterlife in a different way.
Yeah.
Not you're going to these two areas that are floating above us, heaven or hell. Pick a banquet room. It's like, this is so silly. Like, let's focus on, what is the transition? What is peace? What is saying, I have done my job today? Like I've lived today, and if I never see you tomorrow, I'm at peace. Like that's real talk, And that makes you say every day, I'm not looking forward to seeing what Kim Kardashian has on today. Like what is the next summer trend? Why don't I have abs? Like all these like vain things that we think about all the time. And it's being pushed on us. That's what is sad. It's like feeding us every day. And you're like, oh, I wonder why I'm insecure. It's like. Yeah.
And also like all these things that you shouldn't think about. Like when you talk about death, like in one of my hard, darkest times, being allowed to consider death as an option, asking the questions. Not
Yeah.
like I don't think I really have been in a place where I really consider, suicide or something like that. But the value of considering it and exploring that part of my mind just to get to know what's there,
Yeah.
so I don't need to fear that place.
Right.
That's been so serving. And I think there are probably tons of other stuff just like that we are told not to discover or not
Right.
to look into, because
it's evil
also, like,
or it's a
yeah.
sin or these
exactly.
made up words. And there's something really important there that we're like barely touching on.
Yeah.
And that's for other generations telling us what it is to have a human experience. And that's where it circles back. Whoever wrote these books before and how it's been translated so many times to tell us what is the right way, the wrong way of living.
Yeah.
We're human. This is all an experience. So for me, what is love is going to be different for what you is love, and hate is different for me compared to someone else. So how can we say that these words are the only truth, And so that's where it hurts me to see so many people that are going through pain right now or are in a very dark phase of their life to recognize we all think these things. Even the person you think that is the most happiest person alive has had the darkest things probably done to them. And that's why they fill their life with gratitude. That's why they live for the day. This is normal. This is the human experience.
It is.
So that's where I just, I constantly, I get caught up too much in like thinking about, what is that next thing, like how can I help people see it? And at the end of the day, it's the people around me, how do I make them feel loved today? How do I make them feel supported? And it's, no social media meme or anything else is going to make them feel that way versus another human saying, I love you and I had a beautiful day with you today,
Yeah.
Like that's real. And that's a beautiful like moment. And what is beauty? You know what I mean? Like, what is these words that we just kind of, they're visual, So you do have to be impeccable with your word because this impacts people, It's a frequency that goes through us,
Yeah, I love how in the book, I think you uses like the term black magic or something. If you spread like bullshit, you're spreading black magic.
Absolutely. You're putting spells on people every day.
Yeah.
If you're negative and you're constantly, not thinking about other people and trying to control other people, you're putting a spell on them. And I totally get it. I definitely had my own reflections of things that maybe aren't even like quote unquote bad, but just like not feeling, oh, why doesn't this person act this way for me? Like then I realize, oh, I'm doing that. Let me pull this back a little bit, And that's why at the end of the day, it's all about the reaction, So if you want a good reaction, then you bring in your empathy, right? Then you be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
And then your reaction will happen. Your communal experience with that other person that's in your world, you will create that reaction. And that will determine, how you'll do it tomorrow and do it all over again.
Yeah.
So we are in an interesting time. And I hope because of the internet, we have access to every philosophy book possible, that we just continue to learn. We continue to put ourselves in different cultures. We continue to absorb, learn symbols from other people, the way they've communicated in the past. And how is that going to move us into the future? How are we going to be the heroes of our world?
Yeah.
So I think that's at least where I'm heading.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
I think that's a good wrap up of the.
Yeah, I hope that whoever hears this, could just take take that time and see how, how they are and where their heart is, and they can just really be honest with themselves of what they really need right now in this human experience.
Yeah.
And, find it. No matter how far you have to go, find it.
Find it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this time.
Yeah.
Sharing this time with me.
You've been listening to the Infinite Podcast with
Ulf Tønder Flitte.
and me, Øystein Rabbe.
Thanks so much for listening. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify.
Yeah. And or on Facebook or
Follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
And also, we've now made a Patreon account.
Yes.
So if you like this podcast and would like to support us, go to Patreon and check out our Infinite Podcasts site there. Your support would we'd really appreciate it.
It's possible for us to make more podcasts. It takes a lot of time. We enjoy it so much to do it, but we also have regular jobs to pay the bills, and our dream is to be able to do this full time.
Yeah, this is our full time.
And
This
we're taking
will be our full time.
baby steps towards that dream, and we want to make more episodes and continue to share it with you. So that would be great. Actually, I realized when we talk about it, we haven't even explained what Patreon actually is. So
it's like a support site where you can support a business or
artist or
an artist or whatever
creator that makes something
with I guess like monthly donations. Could be like from $1 and upwards.
Yeah.
Right? So anything would be great. We would be so thankful. And you would be thankful because we're doing this for you.
Yeah. And it actually gives it's a good feeling sometimes to actually help the things you care about. So if you're listening to us and you care about us, but I mean seriously, it's a good thing to contribute to the things that matters to you. So
that will help them grow.
We're not asking you to pay unless you actually want to see this podcast grow and unfold into what it's about to become.
Infinite greatness.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.